Hello, I'm Jory Kramer. I am a volunteer with the League of Women Voters of Larimer County, and I have a group of wonderful folks with me today, and we are going to be discussing ranked choice voting in Fort Collins. And with me today we have Kathleen Schmidt, who is also a member of the League of Women Voters of Larimer County and also a member of ranked choice voting for Fort Collins. We have Robbie Moreland, who is a co-founder and a co-chair of the group Ranked Choice Voting for Fort Collins, as well as another member of Ranked Choice Voting for Fort Collins, Nick Armstrong. So thank you all for joining us today and telling us about this opportunity that we have. So let's just dive right in, shall we? Okay. All right, well, what is ranked choice voting?
Ranked choice voting is a method of voting where voters can rank their candidates in order of preference, first, second, or third choice. And if there's a simple majority winner in the first round of ranking, that candidate wins the race is over. But if there's not a simple majority winner in the first round of ranking, then an instant runoff begins. And an instant runoff is where we eliminate the lowest scoring candidate, reallocate those voters' second ranked choice to the remaining candidates, and retally the vote. And this process of eliminating the lowest scoring candidate and retallying the vote continues in rounds until we have a candidate winning the race with a simple majority of the vote.
So it is an instant runoff.
It's instant, yeah. It happens right then.
Right then and there, so that's cool. Were you going to say something, Robbie, or no?
No, that's exactly right.
That's exactly right. Okay. Well, how many candidates can appear on a ranked choice ballot?
As many candidates as legally qualify to be on the ballot can appear on the ballot.
Okay. And you were saying, telling me earlier about in New York City that they had.
Right.
They do have it in New York City.
They do have it in New York City, and they used it for their primary elections for the mayor. And in the Democratic race, they had 13 candidates that ran for that office, and voters were allowed to vote their top 5 preferences for that race.
I see. Oh, very interesting, very interesting. Well, I've been reading up on this, and there's been lots of claims that ranked choice voting will make elections more diverse and more civil. And why is that?
Well, ranked choice voting completely eliminates the spoiler. And
what do you mean by a spoiler?
Do you want to take that, Robbie?
Yeah, if you have several candidates who all have a similar platform, then consider that the voters that want to vote for that platform may end up splitting their vote between those several candidates. And now, instead of one particular platform versus a completely opposite platform, now you're dividing votes among a similar platform. And so that kind of waters down the choices there. So that's what's called spoiling. You discourage people from running because they may spoil the chances for someone else with a similar platform to win.
So it takes out those candidates and maybe perhaps allows another candidate with a very different platform to come in and be the winner.
It could happen that way. But back to your question about why it's good for diversity is that if you don't have that spoiler effect, if you don't have to worry that you're going to be knocking somebody else out who might have a similar platform, more people might be encouraged to run because they may feel like they have an interest in this election or some issues that are important to them, and where they may not be the favorite of a political party or one well-known person in town. They feel like their voice still needs to be heard and they should be joining this race. So
ranked choice voting levels the playing field. And so it opens up the door, it opens up the political door to a wider variety of people. And that can be women, people of color, or third-party candidates. And so when you eliminate that spoiler effect, ranked choice voting is more welcoming to a wider range of candidates. And What else would we say?
Well, the civility of it. Why would it encourage a more polite, more civil election or campaign, I guess?
Well, ranked choice voting incentivizes positive civil issues-based campaigning because candidates need, they not only want to be your first choice vote, but they also want to be your second choice vote. And so ranked choice voting increases that civility.
I saw a meme on social media that I thought was pretty funny, and it's probably really true, that that with ranked choice voting elections, when you're out campaigning and you see your competition's sign in someone's yard, in the past, in plurality elections, you might just walk on by because you know their vote's already taken. But in ranked choice voting elections, you go to that door and you talk to those people because you already may know who their first choice is, but you want to be their second choice.
That's what I was going to say, is that not only does it increase civility, it also incentivizes candidates to make an appeal to a wider range of voters. And so that's how ranked choice voting increases civility.
Pragmatically, you also want to know how your candidates feel about any particular issue. And so you can have smaller single issue candidates run, and you can also have candidates who just want to do the best they can for the city. And if you know where they stand on any particular issue, whether it's hues or plastic bags or whatever it is in the future, they'll be able to have those opinions known, and you can rank your candidates based on their preferences in those cases.
So it really does open it up to a wider variety of issues.
Yeah, and in Fort Collins, the voters are well educated. They know what they're looking for. They know how they feel about certain issues, and they want candidates who reflect those values. And so ranked choice voting really opens up the floor to allow the voters of Fort Collins to more closely identify with their candidates rather than a political party or a political idiom.
Right. And ranked choice voting, not only do we see this appeal to a broader range of candidates, so HUGs they're historically underrepresented groups. They might not be our first choice, but they are our second and third choice candidates. So we see women, people of color, and third-party candidates pick up more votes in rounds by rounds of counting, and then we also see historically underrepresented groups more represented not only on the ballot, but in winning elected office.
Ah, very interesting. That's a good key to have. Mm-hmm. Good way in, mm-hmm. Good way in. Well, ranked choice voting in Fort Collins will only be for single seat elections. So what does that mean, and which elections will be included in that?
It's meant for, in the city of Fort Collins, for the mayoral race and the city council races. Okay. And those are right now single winner seats. So in Boulder they have wide open elections, and top 5 people get selected for their city council as opposed to individual districts like we have here.
I see. Interesting. All right. Well, why aren't all the candidates kept for each round? And I keep hearing there's a lot of people that are afraid of exhausted ballots. So what's an exhausted ballot, and why aren't all the candidates kept round per round?
Sure. An exhausted ballot is simply a ballot that has run its course of all of its choices. And so it does not have the final candidates on it. So the voter had selected to do that, and either making fewer choices than there were candidates available, so they only felt strongly about 1 or 2 of the candidates and there were 6, then they stop after the first 2 rounds if that's where their candidates end up. If those candidates go further, then their ballot would go further in those rounds. If they had an error on their ballot, which happens now, it's exceedingly rare, but that's also an instance where you might have a ballot that is exhausted, but if there's an error, they can identify, they can cure it, and have the ability to do so just as they do right now. And the other instance where that would happen, what is the other instance where that would happen?
For an
There were
exhausted
3.
ballot?
Yeah.
I like to think of an exhausted ballot as the perfect example is like, I don't like any of these candidates, so I'm going to write in Mickey Mouse. So you write in Mickey Mouse, or you write in your next door neighbor because you think your next door neighbor is going to be a great candidate, but you know in your heart that they don't know a lot of people in town, they're really not campaigning, but you want to write in your neighbor, and that's the only candidate you like. You're the only one that voted for them. And now your ballot, because that's the only person you voted for, has been exhausted. You had an option to rank all the candidates, and you chose to write in someone. And so an exhausted ballot is a ballot where someone chose to only rank a few of the candidates, not all of the candidates. And the candidates that they picked didn't have a lot of support, so they were eliminated, and therefore that person's ballot was not counted in the final count to determine the majority winner.
What I would say about that is it's how you vote's your business, and if you want to rank them all or you don't want to rank them all. And you can rank only one candidate if that's all you want. And as long as that candidate remains in the race, your vote will remain in the race. But if that candidate gets eliminated and you've ranked no other choices, then your ballot's eliminated and it's inactive and it's no longer playing a role in the race. So the league thinks that if you vote as many as you can, or your last choice candidate, that your vote is the strongest when it follows you through to the consensus majority winner, and your vote is the weakest when it's exhausted or no longer active in the final round of counting.
We see exhausted ballots pretty frequently being used as a scare tactic to disincentivize folks from utilizing RCV. Really what it is it's voter choice. And so I don't know why you would want to oppose anything that gave the voters more options.
A plurality election, if someone wins by 30% of the vote, that means 70% of the votes are exhausted. So we have exhausted ballots today, and in much bigger numbers than you would have in a ranked choice voting election.
And just to be clear, plurality is when you have one winner that could have the highest percentage, and it doesn't matter if that's 26% or if that's 51%. It's whatever the highest percentage winner is of all those votes. So if we want in Fort Collins to be represented by someone who has a true majority of support, the only alternative that is affordable and useful for us and is pragmatic enough to be applicable, also constitutionally defendable, RCV. Unless we want to run the gamut of trying to do runoff voting, which is expensive, has a lot of
time-consuming.
Exactly. There are a lot of downsides to that.
And just to be clear, RCV is ranked choice voting.
Correct.
So we're just, yeah.
And to give you an example, a real life example of an exhausted ballot too, is that in the last presidential primary, I put my ballot in the mail, and the next weekend, the candidates dropped out of the race.
Yes.
So my ballot was exhausted before the race even started. Right. And if we had ranked choice voting, I could have had a backup candidate in case somebody fell out of the race.
So that would have kept your vote active.
It would have kept my vote alive if I had had
Mm-hmm.
a backup choice.
It's also worth noting that RCV is currently in use for overseas ballot holders, so that in the event that there is a runoff, that many of them have already sent in their ballots, there are choices reflected in their ballots already, so that if there is a runoff necessary, they have those choices reflected in. Don't have to wait until the next ballot mail comes through. So.
Right. So this isn't really all that new of a concept. They have been applying it.
It's been used for 100 years in Australia and Ireland. There's several places in Europe that use it. It is not a new concept. It was used in Cambridge over 100 years ago. It's been used in the United States for a long time, and there's over 50 municipalities in the United States that use it right now, including the entire state of Maine, the state of Alaska, and 23 cities in Utah, among a few. Yeah. So it's not like we're inventing this or reinventing something.
Right. Well, not being a math person, why aren't all the candidates kept? Why do you eliminate the...
Well, you have to get that. Ranked choice voting requires the winner to win with the majority of the votes. And so if you don't have a majority of votes, a winner with the majority of the votes in the first round, someone has to go. Okay. And so that's why a candidate gets eliminated, because that candidate is the lowest vote getter. Okay. And we eliminate those candidates until we have a candidate winning with a majority of the race.
Okay, I see.
So as you eliminate the candidate with the lowest number of support, those voters' votes, their second choice is then moved up into, and it's considered for the next count.
I see. Yeah. So So that makes it fair.
Correct.
And everybody has an equal voice if they'll vote their ballot.
Right. And sometimes we'll hear, well, hey, that's like you got to vote twice there. That's like you had two chances at the winning candidate. And well, that's not true. Every person gets one ballot, one vote. And it's the candidates that drop off if they don't have enough support. And at all times, your vote is only active for the highest ranking candidate. And that is why ranked choice voting meets the threshold constitutional requirement of one person, one vote, is because it meets the constitutional requirement of one person, one vote.
Well, because at the end of the day, your ballot is only going to count once.
That's right.
You may have ranked all
Right.
4 or 5 candidates, but only one
At one time,
vote
it is your
counts.
Yeah. At only one time, your vote counts for the highest ranking candidate. And so it does meet the constitutional requirement of one person, one vote. And it met the requirement for one person, one vote once in 1903, and then it's met it again in 2018. So
You mean it went to court and was...
yeah, and
was-
it's been constitutionally affirmed, not once but twice.
Nice. Yeah. Well, that makes good sense. And that's probably another reason why the league supports it, is that it does have this
Yeah.
constitutional...
Requirement. The league supports ranked choice voting because it requires the winner of the race to win with a majority of the vote. And that is what will make our democracy the strongest, and how we can protect it is if we require the winner to win the race with the majority of it.
But back when we were getting started looking at alternative voting methods for Fort Collins, and knowing that we needed winners to have a majority, there are lots of methods you can go with. There are many different voting methods out there, but not all of them have met the test yet of one person, one vote. And a lot of them haven't been tried, and especially in a city this size. So we just can't take that chance on an unproven method, and that's why we went with ranked choice voting in the first place, because it's been tried, it's been around, and it's been proven.
And
Court approved.
That's right,
Yeah.
and people approved.
Constitutionally approved.
Yes.
And the reason why ranked choice voting is the best ranked choice voting method is because it requires the winner to win with the majority of the vote. And if there isn't, there's an instant runoff. And it happens instantly. Nobody has to come back. There isn't an additional runoff election where you get lower turnout and you increase the price. And so that's another reason why the league supports ranked choice voting, is because of instant runoff voting, the way we tally the vote.
And Kathleen and I know that the league just studies everything before they lend their support to an issue like this. So it has been studied and studied and studied.
And the league is also really well known for staying nonpartisan.
Yes.
And ranked choice voting by some of the naysayers has been accused of being either a leftist thing or a rightist thing, or because it's in Utah, it must be a conservative thing, or because it's in Maine, it must be No, it is a nonpartisan voting method that doesn't favor one party or the other, and that's the beauty of it too. It kind of takes the parties out of the formula and allows anyone to run who wants to run, and makes our elections more issues-based, and hopefully brings down the heat in elections and makes people talk about issues instead of taking pot shots at each other.
Yeah.
It's a powerful democratic reform that works for both sides of the aisle, works for both parties.
Very good, very good. Well, what other myth-busting questions do we have that maybe you want to talk about?
I think a lot of folks like to think that RCV is too complicated when they have criticisms to offer. And we've seen this with the NAACP. They originally opposed the RCV voting method. And when it was clear that the constitutional challenge was met, that RCV actually was constitutional, and there was, it's a proven methodology, that it's worked in other municipalities, that it works where it's, and generally well voted, doesn't disincentivize minorities, doesn't disincentivize candidates who are people of color, women, any arrangement or assortment of socio-ethno-demographic backgrounds. All of these things held true. And so what ended up happening was that instead of being opposed to it, the NAACP then started transitioning into voter education. And so with any transition for voting methodology, voter education, and even if we were to stick with the current plurality methodology, voter education is paramount.
It is.
Having run for District 1, I can tell you that, folks in that race, there were only 2 of us running. And still, some of the questions that came up, like, is this within the realm of a recount? Is this what happens with a recount? What happens with the votes? How many are held back? The methodology and process in our current system is not well known or understood by the voting populace, and these are very well informed Fort Collins voters.
Yes.
And so any methodology, whether it's plurality, RCV, needs education behind it to help the voters really understand what their vote means and how it counts.
Yes, indeed.
But as far as level of difficulty, it is literally as easy as
1, 2, 3.
rank your favorite. What would you like to have for dinner tonight? Chicken or fish or beef? Put them in order from your favorite to your least favorite. It is that simple. A child can do it. Anyone can do it. And at the top of every ballot, even with our current system of voting, there's instructions at the top. Yes. Don't put an X, fill in the hole. And it will show you just like that at the top of a ranked choice voting ballot. Here's the proper way, what your ballot should look like after you vote. So we look forward to the challenge of educating the city. We know the League of Women Voters will be helpful in that, and the city itself will take that on to educate the voters prior to the first time we use it.
Well, and I know the ranked choice voting for Fort Collins has been very active in going out and doing demonstrations in pubs and churches, going all over the place. The last one I just participated in was, I don't remember, it was Easter candy. I think it was right. Easter candy. So how would I find out where you're doing these demonstrations?
We have an events page on rcvforfortcollins.com. So you click on our events page and you'll see all the ones we have for this month and next month, and we're trying to have several a month at various locations, different times of the day, different days of the week, and hopefully over the next few months, everybody can find one that meets their availability and can stop in. And their interest.
Yes.
Maybe we'll do some ice cream toppings.
Ooh,
We did a League of Women Voters ice cream topping event last year.
We did.
Yeah.
And my team lost.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. we did have the best, though.
And I might want to just tell the one person who voted for pineapple to be their first, second, third, fourth, and fifth choice that only your first one would count anyway. So
Yeah,
it doesn't help
right.
the candidate at all if you pick them for all of your choices.
There's no strategic benefit to voting
No.
for the one candidate 5 times. There's no strategic benefit.
Doesn't work that way, folks. And I think that's going to come up. So we'll have to. Good thing to know that you have to do 1, 2, 3, and 4 on different people. Not you can't put all 4 votes on one person.
You can. It just doesn't do any benefit.
It doesn't do any benefit.
No strategic benefit to it.
Okay. All right. Very good. So, well, what is the next step for RCV for Fort Collins?
Well, first we have to get City Council to refer it to the ballot, and that's our goal. So that will happen by July 5th is their final vote on that, and then we will spend the rest of the summer and fall getting out the vote, helping people understand, making sure they've had a chance to rank a beer or rank an ice cream topping, and we just think the more people know about it, the more they'll accept it. And the City Council has been talking about implementation in 2025. So that will give the city plenty of opportunity to get a website with educational information available, plenty of time for the League of Women Voters to help educate, and plenty of time for our group to educate people on how it works.
Yeah, and on our website and on our social media profiles, you can also test it out yourself with different ballots that we post on a regular basis. So there are different ways you can see the results in real time. You can vote and see how your vote was tallied and how the different rankings happened over the different rounds. It's a really intuitive tool, and it is super easy to use. So even if you think you don't like RCV, check it out and see how it works in real time. And we might just change your mind.
I think you will. I think so. I think there's something to be said for that test drive.
Yeah.
Definitely. And come out and ask the questions. That's right. I mean,
all of our team is local here in Fort Collins.
Yeah.
These are, your neighbors who are pushing for this change.
Right.
It's not just some big external group doing some, shady stuff. It's us, it's neighbors. We're out here. I ran for city council in Fort Collins. Robbie's, checked on election finances to make sure that candidates are doing the right thing. You're part of the League of Women Voters. We're here. We're your neighbors.
Yeah. I've lived here 40 years, just about. How many of you lived here?
I've lived here 8 years.
Oh, not as long as I thought.
No.
Yeah, I've been here since about almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So I came for CSU.
We are a local grassroots organization. Ranked choice voting for Fort Collins is a local grassroots organization. And the League of Women Voters is a historic, nonpartisan group. And we're allies in a common cause to bring ranked choice voting to Fort Collins to elect our mayor and city council.
My takeaway from that race was, thank goodness we had such good candidates.
Yes.
And well-intentioned candidates who weren't willing to attack and belittle each other, because it could have easily gone, maybe not in Fort Collins, because generally most candidates are above board in that way, but it could have easily gone a different way, and as divisiveness in our democracy increases, I worry about that. And it's something where we could have an issue that comes up where you have 3 or 4 different candidates who are, generally well-intentioned, but then start rabble-rousing a little bit more than we're accustomed to here in Fort Collins, and suddenly we have a dissatisfaction with whoever was chosen instead of just a meh, as was currently
Be
felt
a good
right now.
candidate anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay either way because we know that their intentions are good and they're hoping to help the city. So.
We don't think we're going to completely eliminate negative campaigning. We don't think we are. But we do think ranked choice voting heightens that level of civility because they have to make appeals to be not just your first choice candidate, but to be your second choice candidate as well. So.
And I'm hoping that ranked choice voting knocks down those barriers and tells political parties, you don't have a part in a nonpartisan election. Our candidates are about the issues, and we're about the people who can best address the issues important to any district or to the whole city. So I think ranked choice voting encourages that.
Indeed.
Indeed.
It should be telling that both of the major 2 political parties are not endorsing at the moment, but the majority, actually every other political party in Fort Collins that's active in Fort Collins does endorse ranked choice voting.
And in Colorado.
And in Colorado, yeah.
Right.
So as a candidate and as an independent voter, unaffiliated, I've seen this firsthand from the other side. Folks discouraged from running, folks disincentivized from running. Just down the street in Loveland, we had a great example of why RCV is so necessary, the Ward 3 race. And you had an incumbent who did not want to run. They specifically said it. They were quoted in the Reporter Herald. They did not want the seat. They didn't want to run. They felt they had served their term, and they couldn't find anybody else of their same political leanings to lean into that race as well. And so you had 2 brilliant candidates who were highly motivated, super excited, had great experience, and they lost because they split the vote. And that is a huge testament to why we need ranked choice voting, in my mind. You had business-friendly candidates. Both of them were business-friendly. You had candidates who were very much pro-Loveland, pro-art, pro-music. I mean, their certifications were golden, and they should easily have been able to carry an election if it was either one of them running. And with a plurality, that just wasn't possible.
It's just crazy, isn't it?
It's discouraging, and I think that in a plurality, if we look at what the long-term consequences of a plurality is, it's extremism, because you have to pull in more and more and more of the edges of your particular political ideology in order to gain traction. And it becomes an us versus them. We're seeing this happen throughout the country with this increased divisiveness. So RCV, I think, I'm a little bit more hopeful about it's not necessarily a panacea, but I do believe that it will make our elections more issue-driven and more focused on particular issues that candidates are best suited to solve.
So it really brings their expertise, their knowledge to the fore.
Yep. And how do we feel about that problem? Is that something that our community right now wants to prioritize and is willing to solve with that person? If you have questions, follow us, ask questions. We're all here to answer questions. Even if you disagree with us, please ask the questions.
And they can do that through the website?
Through the website. You can, come to an event and ask us questions.
Yes.
We just be civil. If you
Well,
disagree, then
yeah.
do it with civil discourse. But other than that, we're here. We've seen most of the questions come through. We're always happy to run demos for groups or different events or at a particular place. We're always happy to do that and show you the ins and outs of what we know and how we think the system works, and it's a great system to share. Knowledge about and engagement with democracy is always a good thing. So even if you disagree, then please be engaged.
And where it's currently being used in Colorado. Boulder is going to start using it. Broomfield passed it last year. Telluride has been using it for a while, and a town called Basalt. And hopefully we're going to be the next one on the list of Colorado towns using ranked choice voting.
The Colorado legislature actually just passed instructions for all county clerks to be ready for RCV methodology. So it seems like the larger paradigm is shifting towards RCV in Colorado in general. And once it becomes a Colorado law, then we don't have to worry about these individual citywide campaigns anymore. But we're looking forward to seeing it happen in Fort Collins first and being a real trendsetter in this way. Maybe not the first in Colorado, but it's been proven that it works here. So let's keep up that good trend.
Well, Fort Collins is a home rule city, so we'd be going down this road whether with this new RCV law in Colorado anyways, because Fort Collins is a home rule city. So we have to do this charter change. It's a charter change to ask to change the way we vote, and it has to be put on the ballot by city council, preferably because they're much more likely to succeed with the voters than a citizens initiative. And so that's why we're really advocating for city council to put ranked choice voting on the ballot for ranked choice voting in November.
Awesome. All right. Well, at this point, I'd like to take a segue and just say, give me an elevator pitch. One or two reasons, maybe three, why we need to do this. So, Nick, we'll start with you.
Sure. Ranked choice voting gives us the ability to have much more issue-driven campaigns and identify our candidates that we believe are best suited and positioned to solve those particular issues in our community. And they're not disincentivized based on their political ideology, their voting history, where they live in the city. They're simply best positioned to run and solve that particular issue. And I think that when we can identify candidates like that, that's a very hopeful outcome for our city in general.
Robbie?
It is my firm belief that our candidates should represent the broadest swath of their constituents as possible. And so ranked choice voting requires a majority or broad support amongst the electorate in your district, and I think that's super important that you represent the most people possible in your district.
Very good. Kathleen?
I would say with the power of our backup vote, voters have the freedom to vote their values without worrying about splitting the vote or without worrying about wasting their vote. And with that power of that backup choice, it incentivizes candidates to have civil issues-based campaigning. And ranked choice voting levels the playing field, and so it opens up the door, the political door, to a wider range of candidates. And we hear from a wider representation of the community. And ranked choice voting is a powerful democratic reform because it requires the winner of the race to win with the majority of the vote. And with ranked choice voting, the voters will have more voices, and we'll have more choices to choose from. And it's a more fair and democratic process, and that's why the League thinks ranked choice voting is the better way to vote.
Well, it's been really great to talk to you all. I have to say, I'd been researching this and I still learned a lot during this discussion. So thank you for joining us today. And we'll be hopeful that City Council approves this to go on the ballot, and they can find out more information at your website, which is
rcvforfortcollins.com.
rcvforfortcollins.com. Well, again, thanks for joining us
Thanks,
today.
Dory.
Yeah.